My name is Laurens Wapenaar. I am product manager at FinDock. Today, we'll be talking about a couple things we put in the release. I'd like to update you on the status of the pilots and the betas we're running. We introduced a new feature to replace an old feature around payment schedule statistics. We have done significant upgrades to our Mollie integration. And of course, there are the many small wins that we hope to make a big difference together in the release as well. First, our pilots and betas. In this release, we are moving a couple pilots to GA, including our fundraising connector and our end-to-end encryption connector. And we hope to do the same in our coming releases. For the setup feature, we've done a couple things that are good to mention during the beta as well. We have added a couple more processors, Mollie, Redsys, Active, and Tiki, to the new setup. So if you are a user of these processors, you can now also use the new setup to configure your environments. In the January release, so the next release, we will adding our final two processors to this new setup, which means we'll be fully complete and on a par with functionality of the old setup. We're still looking for beta test feedback. So if you have any feedback, you've been using the new setup, please don't hesitate to contact me directly. That's laurens@findock.com, or email us at support@findock.com, because we need your input to make sure we make the best possible implementation experience. Next up, our first new feature. To introduce it, I'd like to talk a little bit about the broader context of it. Which is payment schedules. So we continuously try to make the whole experience of collecting and disbursing payments as easy as possible. Whether you automate everything fully end-to-end or try to be more hands-on and want to run these things yourself. So we go from scheduling the runs to validating data quality before you start processing, to see if there's any missing data that can still be corrected, to running the schedule itself and keeping track of its process, especially if it's large and you have hundreds of thousands of payments involved, to then verifying the result of your collection or disbursement run. And in this last category, we have in this release tried to improve the experience beyond what currently was already available. On the right-hand side of the payment schedule, there used to be two reports that showed in a summary way how many installments were there and how much money those installments in total were for. And we believe that that we can make that experience a lot easier and better, because the reports didn't show everything that was in scope of the payment schedule in one glance. So what we've done is we've created a new custom component called Payment Schedule Stats that summarizes all the installments that are in scope of the payment schedule and in what status they are and for what amount they are. So you can at a glance quickly see what's going on. We also do the same for the payment schedule when it's completed. So if there's lots of failures, we will show a breakdown of those failures and the reasons they've been failed, so you can quickly follow up or see what's going on with your collection run. Now, we hope this makes verifying the status of the payment schedule, whether it's still new or whether you've already run it, and would like to check whether everything was completed successfully, much faster. And we've done several things to also enable you to dive into more details if you would like to know that. The best way to show you what that looks like is to go to our actual app. So here I have a very large payment schedule of a couple 100,000 installments. And on the right-hand side, below the data quality component, you see this new payment schedule stats component. Now I have a ridiculous number of failures simply because I would like to show you what it looks like and have a bit of data for that. But as you can see, we have about 460,000 installments for a total value of 22 million pounds. Before there used to be two reports here, which showed a lot less data, at least at a glance. We also see below here two tabs. One, the first tab is simply based on status. So it basically calculates the number of installments that are in what status, and this is dynamic. So if there were more statuses of installments available, we would show 3 or 4 or 5. As you can see here, a lot of them are still in the new state, so they need to be run still. And we also have the total amount of those here, but a whole bunch of them are already in a failed state, about almost 10,000, and for quite a bit of money. So it's definitely worth diving a little bit deeper. First, what we can do is find out on the failure reason tab why these have failed. So on this tab, instead of filtering on status, we take all the failed installment and then group them on failure reason, and then count the number of installments in that failure reason. So theoretically, if there would be something up with your data or with your mandates or anything that could impact collections, in a more general way, you would be able to see that there. Here you see, simply for demo purposes, we have a couple thousand with the insufficient funds or with disputed authorizations or where their account is blocked. And the idea is that it gives you some idea of where you need to be looking to prevent these types of failures. Now, this, of course, is still summarized and grouped. And you may want to look into the details of these installments, especially if there's lots of different failure reasons for many different reasons. So what we've done is we've taken the old reports and we've put them behind these buttons. So you see a button here and you see two buttons here. And these buttons basically reference the old report that we had on number of installments, the total amount, and also on failure reason. If we click those, basically we go to the report builder where these reports can be found. And to save a little bit of time, I've opened it here already. And then here you can see in very much detail what's going on with these installments. And you can click through and then analyze them one by one if you would so require. Now, these are just the reports we've shipped, and and every organization may have a different way they would want to handle this, or maybe you have a different idea of what these reports should look like. So in this new payment schedule component, we've made it possible for you to do that. By default, you will find our reports here, but if you would like to change what's behind these buttons, you can simply do so by going to the page layout, opening the settings for the components, and then selecting any report that you have here. You can search for them. Basically, we just grab all the reports from the environment, and you can search for them based on the name. This allows you to further personalize the process of verifying these payment schedules and handling any errors you might get during the collection or disbursement process. That's what I wanted to show. So now it's back to our slides. If you want to use this component, we've included it in our standard layout. We know that many customers have their own layouts, but you can simply drag and drop the component on there to adjust your layout. On to Mollie. In this November release, we've introduced a couple major improvements to our Mollie connection and integration. The first and primary one, and most important one, is that we have migrated our integration from using the Mollie version 1 API to the Mollie version 2 API. The reason for this being that the Mollie version 1 API is being retired by the end of this year. And we want to make sure that your operations and your payments collections continue as normal. So in the backend, we have changed this integration and that shouldn't impact anything on your end. So no manual action should be required for your integration with FinDock and Mollie to continue. We've taken this migration as an opportunity to also introduce some features that we have for many payment processors, but did not have for Mollie yet. Two of those are included in the November release, and those are that Mollie is now multi-current, so you can use multiple currencies in your payments. That wasn't possible with the Mollie V1 API, so that's an immediate benefit for us of migrating, aside from continued business continuity. The second feature is that Mollie is now also multi-merchant, which means that you can use multiple Mollie accounts with one Salesforce environment. In the January release, we will be adding another improvement on top of this, and that's that we want to make payment schedules much faster, and especially when you're processing tens or hundreds of thousands of payments through Mollie. Finally, our small wins. Before we go there, I do want to mention our own FinDock V1 API will be end of life on the 1st of January of 2025. All customers that still had something running on this API have been informed, and we're in contact with them, but it's good to keep repeating this, I think. We have several resources that you can use about how the V2 API works, exactly how to migrate, and of course, detailed documentation on the API. On to the small wins. There's too many here, as always, to go through in detail. So you can go to our documentation website and our release notes to get more information. One I would like to highlight is that we are continuously doing and have released several performance enhancements for our processing hub. So anything file related, whether it's payment schedules or imports or things like that, we expect to be faster after the November release. This is where you can find our release notes. They're on our new documentation website under the release notes tab, and then it's the November release under current release. That's it from our side. In the new year, we hope to bring many more cool new features to you. If you have any questions, I will stick around to answer them. If you've got somewhere else to be, thank you for listening, and see you next time.